Taurus, welcome to your January 2022 reading and predictions. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James. For those of you who are stopping by for the first time, and the subscribers, always great to see you. My love and affection to you always. Now, I'm looking at this deck here, and very often, as the subscribers know, we we use a lot of astrology and horoscopes in the reading of the tarot. This deck here, though, speaks to, well, what it does is it actually calls on more for channeling, I think, more than anything. And so what is likely to happen is that I think that words are liable to come through from centers of consciousness, depending on the card and the image that's there for you to have a look at. And what I'd ask you to do is to then, if what is likely to happen does happen, which I think it may do, then listen to the words, but listen to the words between the words, because it could also have things to do with your shadow self, your shadow work, this particular deck. Now, that doesn't mean that anything bad is going to happen to you. Quite the contrary. This is really something which is just more for you to be aware of and to look into yourself. And of course, the readings and things that I do are always to provide you with things that are uplifting and make you feel good about yourself. But one which doesn't insult your intelligence, and one which is not like a tabloid tarot. So we take an intelligent approach to it here, which I know that you do appreciate. So let's get things underway now. Unlike the annual reading, which is available now, which you can find on the playlist, the annual 2022 reading, you can, of course, which has about 12 cards in it. This one we're only going to take 5, so let's see what there is. Let's take these 5 cards, and there is the 6 of Wands. Really quite interesting imagery. I don't know what is liable to be said from these things as yet. That's the World card. That's always something good. The 5 of Cups. Let's see what this is. Yeah, you should check out your annual reading. It's on the playlist. Very easy to find. And let's have a look at this one. Strength. And finally, the Ace of Swords. Well, what is in store for us with these? Why don't you come down, sit down here next to me. We'll have a good look at the imagery on these cards together while I do the reading for you. Let's have a look at this 6 of Wands first, shall we? This is a particularly good card for you, I think. Let's see what it has to say. Well, the 6 of Wands is a card of true greatness, success, and almost divine authority. Those represented by the card lead a sort of a charmed life, and everything they will comes to pass. So this is a great time for you. Now, this card is a force to be reckoned with, a victory, and acclamation from others is what I see for you during this period here. Now, on the card itself, let's see what there is. Well, really, I think what we have to say is that 2 of the most well-known faces of ancient Egypt can be seen in this card, Nefertiti and Tutankhamun. Now, Nefertiti was the wife of King or Pharaoh Akhenaten, and Tutankhamun was the son of Akhenaten, but by another wife. Now, the reign of Akhenaten and Nefertiti is particularly interesting to historians because it was unknown until the 1800s when the city of Amarna was discovered. Now, following his reign, Akhenaten had wiped from history by those, his name and his reign really had been wiped from history by those who came after him. There was a backlash against the monotheism which he established in place of the traditional Egyptian polytheism, I suppose. And the city that he built, which was Amarna, it was called Akhetaten, which means horizon of the Aten. Well, that was built by him really quickly at the beginning of his reign, but it was abandoned just after his death. Now it served as the center for the worship of the Aten, represented by a sun disk from which rays of light with hands emanated. What then happened was, with the growth of his monotheism, though, Akhenaten gradually shifted his relationship with the divine, with the Aten, from that of a worshipper and a dutiful son to that of the living embodiment of the divine force, the Sun King in all his glory. Now, texts that mention Akhenaten, such as hymns to the Aten, reaffirm that close relationship that he had. Of course, all the pharaohs then after that were considered to be divine as well. But what is the mystery? Let's have a look. I think true success, what do you have to say? True success and greatness is as blinding as the sun. Stare too long and it will burn both certainty and devotion into your heart. Now don't be fooled by those who let words of victory drip from their tongue as carelessly as the dew falls from flowers in the morning. They haven't known greatness and make it a shadow in their own image. But they were weak challengers, and I will always rise. I am the ruler by achievement and dedication. My striving does not cease as long as the sun rises and falls. With every dawn, I am made anew in my jubilations, praising the name of greatness, so that I may be great. With every dusk, I know the establishment of my success. For all the moments in between, which span the length of the sky, I celebrate and continue to strive for more. There is no barrier to my desire for accomplishment. Now is my time. I am great of name, born to eternity, blessed by the divine light, warrior of the sun, child of its fiery rays. I reflect the light and truth to others, and they look to me for guidance. Well, where shall we go? What's sitting underneath it? Let's have a look at this one here, shall we? Let's see what this has got to say. What is it? Strength. Who's this? Okay. I would say, and let's just have a look at this here. In India, it is the goddess Durga who represents the strength of will, power, and energy that is required to overcome. Now, she is given a large and very widespread festival in India known as the Durga Puja, and happens every autumn or fall during the first 9 days of the waxing moon of the month of Asvin. And what then happens is that devotees purchase or donate to the creation of beautiful, brightly coloured clay images of Durga, recreating her energy, beauty, vibrancy. Now, in the sacred ceremonies for Durga, which are known as Durga Puja, Durga is given many praises. She's called the giver of victory and killer of enemies, or suppressor of the arrogance of demons, dread incarnate, and the remover of fears arriving from all quarters. Now, the ritual to Durga praises her as having enormous strength and might, born of divine energy of the gods. Even her name reminds us of the inner strength and active power that she embodies, because it comes from the Sanskrit word, incidentally, for fort. Now, in this card, her hair is long, and let's have a closer look at it. It's long and it's wild. Now, that's a reference, I think, to the East Javanese, Java in Indonesia period, because actually Hinduism was very big in Indonesia in the times before it turned to Islam. And that's particularly during the period from the 10th to the 15th century. And they all show Durga in this manner. I've been up to Indonesia a number of times. Now, the wild hair is associated with power and wildness and inner strength that can intimidate and protect. Now, during Durga Puja, the inner power of every devotee is called upon, it's called up, and given strength, the battles of the world are to be found around every corner, and Durga blesses her warriors with an understanding of how to channel their ferocity and raw energy towards victory. Now, what is the mystery that is associated with her? There are those that will tell you that the world is love and beauty. They are fools and liars. The world is a great battlefield filled with struggle and the spilling of blood. This is the nourishment of the earth. Yet in this vast arena of conflict, you forget that the final battlefield is yourself. I am the bringer of victory over demons, rider of lions, mistress of power, the invincible warrior. Make offerings of flowers and blood to me, and I shall open my arms, bedecked with weaponry, to take you into my bosom as my child. But don't dance for me. Show me your battles. Give me your fighting in all your strength of will. Listen to my war cry, and you shall understand the light of the fires within that blaze higher at the sound of the clashing of swords. It is bloodlust, life-lust, and lust to overcome. This overcoming is the greatest mystery and the longest journey. It is a road that never ends. There is no highest, no completion, only greater challenges. I, power awakened, demand your knowing of your raw power, your embodiment of that dynamic force that creates the world, your acceptance of the warrior's austere road of self-will and inner strength. Sing songs for me, and raise to me your spears. Cry out my name in the midst of battle, and I shall cry out within you as the fire that burns in your soul. I think we might go this way, shall we? Go up this way, then down here. Let's have a look. What's this got to say? Interesting. Who might? Oh, I think I know who this is. Let's have a look. Now, this image here, this painting, shows a woman dressed in funeral black, wailing in grief before a family tomb. And in each of her hands she holds a coin. Behind her are 2 cups that are upright, but next to her and in front of her 3 other cups have fallen, spilling offerings for the dead, milk, wine, and barley, spilling them onto the earth. This wailing for the dead had a place and a role to play in Greek and Roman society, but here it is out of place, continuing long after the funeral rites have ended. She is on her own in public, an improper act for a woman then. Even visits to the graveside would have had to have been in the company of other women. Here is grief driving self-destructive action. Now, the abundant flowers and other plants above the tomb in the card, they are the anemone, the flower created by Aphrodite from the blood of her slain lover Adonis during her grief over his death. And it is associated with loss and death. But in that myth, and by myth I don't mean something that's not true, just something that embodies a truth. But in this myth, the grieving woman was able to transform her grief into the creation of beauty. In this card, though, the woman holds 2 coins representing what I call Charon's Fair, coins that were placed with the deceased at the time of burial. Now, in this very wide and varied funeral practice that was around in those days, money was most commonly placed in the dead person's mouth, It was usually low-value money and symbolized the fee that was expected to be paid to the ferryman to take the dead over the river Styx. The coins being held by the grieving woman in this card show that she cannot let go of the deceased and accept their death. Thus, the woman holding two coins represents both her inability to let go of the deceased and her own inability to return to the present and come out of mourning. Further, she is preventing the transition of the memories of the deceased from pain to acceptance and joy, because she's dwelling on her grief. She kneels at a river in a similar way to the restless souls that were unable to cross the river Styx of the underworld because they didn't get the proper funeral rites, or because they died away in battle and there was no one there to look after them, or they fell off a cliff or something in the middle of nowhere. And like them, she is stuck between the worlds of living and the dead, alive but consumed by death. Now the mystery is that after love must come pain. From all attachment comes grief, whether through choice or unfeeling death. Our beloved ones fade from us, and we cling in our suffering to their shades, though our cries disappear on the wind. We all know this deep wound in the heart, the pain that is so strong that it cannot be given to words, yet will not remain silent. I am that anguished cry that is torn from the widow's throat, the cry for what has been that arises from fear of the present. I am that shadow behind all who grieve, bearing witness to the private performance of loss, knowing the pain within that outward actions only begin to express. My name is unspeakable, yet I am companion to all for time along their path. I am called tears and lamentation of sorrow, the grip of the dead and the invisible one. Shrouded by my mantle, you may wail and tear at your cheeks, beat your fists and rage at the heavens. I will hold you like the boat that carried sailors over storm-tossed seas. But beware that my embrace becomes too familiar. I have fingers that cling. Know that it is not my choice, but yours, for it is in your hand that presses my fingers to shut closer on your heart. Let's have a look at this major arcana, which is the world. Look, to me this seems to be a reference to wisdom, to Sophia, and there's a Gnostic text, that is something that was found in the Nag Hammadi library, called Pistis Sophia, that tells of Sophia's fall when she tried to go against the will of God, and repentance and then coming back, her ascent and reunion with the divine, where she says in, I think it's 100 verse 159 or something of that text, as I recall it, for the light is with me, and I myself am with the light. Sophia's fall was the descent of the soul into matter. This and her repentance and redemption created three parts of the universe: matter from her suffering, soul from her repentance, and spirit from her understanding. Now Sophia needed a place in which unformed spiritual substance could grow to maturity, and this place was the material world. Now this teaching reminds us that we originate from the divine. It is our inheritance and our birthright to seek union with it again. The world represents the womb in which the understanding to achieve this is grown. It's gestated like a fetus, and the process through which we may learn to bring together the ordinary things in our lives and divine elements that cloak our lives and ourselves in order to transcend them. Thus, Sophia holds a flaming heart in her right hand, which is symbolic of the anima mundi, the world, soul, and intrinsic connection between all living things. Now, the mystery is, you have walked the long road, seeker of wisdom, with your feet on the firmament of the earth, but do you see the place in which your head resides? Do you see the starry canopy in which the angels call you back to your place of birth? You are a being of divine origin, one star among the company of stars above, with a blood tie to the earth below. You are the very force and process through which the universe might know itself. You are the means by which the sacred is exalted. All things share in your divine spark. By exalting that which is above, you also exalt that which is below. No thing is separate from another thing, yet they are fragmented from the Great One. This is the triumph and completion of the world and the soul's journey. It is separated from the heavens so that it might come to know the multitude of manifestations into which it was born, so that it might know reunion with the whole. Your soul is a cooking pot of bringing things together in which the sacred and the ordinary dance and embrace. When you have opened your eyes to this truth, you may see me in all my glory, resplendent with my prostitution among the company of mortals, for I am wisdom, and I am to be taken by all. My mystery is that of the beginning and the end of all things, of the purpose for the journey and the attainment of its completion. I am the first and the last, the fallen and the exalted. I am your birthright. Now, seeker, you have reached the end, and thus you can begin to see the beginning. Now, let's see. I think we only have left this one, don't we? Let's have a look at this. This is the Ace of Swords. Oh, look, this is very Norse. Very Norse. I'll tell you why it's very Norse, because this is all reference to the Scandinavian gods. This is the world tree which is growing up here, in which all knowledge is to be obtained. These things here, they're runes. They're the sacred runes, and these are the runes of the Elder Futhark. These two ravens were Odin's ravens, Mumman and Human, that were represented thought and memory. I've spoken of them in the past. I may have in another deck or decks that I use, so I won't go into it now. But you know that there's not a single cultural religion in the world that doesn't have some thought or some form of concept of the order of the universe at the foundation of its understanding. This assumption of cosmic order is necessary for further ideas to come about. And it is upon this foundation that we build everything else. And this doesn't just refer to religion or philosophy. Science, too, must build on its own faith, if you like, within which it can refer to laws that set aside to decide upon questions that it wants to answer. Now here, we find this vital cosmic order in this Ace of Swords. Here is the idea that underlies all knowledge, not the seed of the idea, but the necessary point before it that allows the seeds of the idea to be born. The Ace of Swords, therefore, is associated with order in its many forms, and being the key to its suit, it is also the element of air at its purest, ready to be experienced in its many forms throughout the rest of the suit. As such, the Ace of Swords represents all mental processes, thought, communication, understanding, listening and observing. And since it is not yet applied to the world, it is also completely objective in your mind. Now the mystery is, what must come before the word? What must come before the thought? What must come before memory? What cannot be seen yet must come before the seeing? I am speech, but I am silent. I am spoken of, and yet I am incomprehensible. I am the most basic principle necessary for the step from nothing, from chaos to something. I am order, and I am law. It is upon my principles that the planets move in their cosmic dance, stars die and are born, and from the seething of time you emerge. I give life to your breath, your ideas and your words. It is only by my holy reed that you may say anything at all. For what is speech or thought but the ordering of chaos from unformed instances? With what speech you have called me by many names. But imagined me across the world as the great tree, the roots of order, reaching down beneath the earth to the realms you cannot name, the branches stretching above the heavens beyond your understanding. Well, what an extremely interesting thing for you. Good job, Taurus.
Well, that's January 2022 done for you. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating, I think. Don't you? I think it's going to be a great month for you. And don't you deserve it? You really do. Anyway, some interesting food for thought there, I think, and you know how to do it. Onwards and upwards for you always. Now, remember one thing, and it's one thing to remember until I see you again, and it is this, that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, it's bye for now.